365 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Yo, hi. Hey, beautiful people. So if you've never been into my podcast before, my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I come on, I talk to people who are doing things to empower the lives of others by sharing their story. And the whole goal behind what I do is to just help people kind of shift the way they think. Um, and speaking of shifting the way you think, I just wanted to tell you all about my course that I created starting April the 4th. You can access the course at any point. There's two courses. I'm just going to share my screen really quick because I always forget to do this. Let me just share my screen with you real quick. So if you go to shiftingthewayouthink.com, you can find both of my courses. One of the courses are called Healing the Inner Child. I'm just going to scroll down so you can see the two courses. So Healing the Inner Child, you can learn how to work on deep-rooted suffering, learn about your inner child, understand why we tend to avoid the inner child, how to identify unhealthy coping patterns, how to replace unhealthy patterns with positive ones, learning how to create peace in your life despite your past. So that's the first course. The second course is called All About Love. So the goal in this course is to understand the importance of defining love, how the love received as a child dictated your views on love, how love cannot leave room for acts of abuse or neglect, how love is an intentional action and not just a feeling. There's a difference. Rethinking of self love, like what does it really mean? And how self love and spirituality are critical to having loving relationship with others. And when I say spirituality, I am not talking about religion. I'm talking about the relationship you have with yourself. So those are two courses that's available. And one of them is guided by me, but that's only available 4 times a year. And April 4th is the last day to sign up for that one. And the next time that class opens up is July. But then there's a self-guided one where you'll have the same tools that the people that are being guided by me will have, but you will do it on your own. So if you go to shiftingthewayouthink.com, you can find that. Hey, Wes. All right, so I'm going to bring on my guest and add him to the stream and have him introduce himself to you all. Hello. How are you today? Can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Hi, I'm Jermaine Morris. Always happy to be here.
I'm
And
happy to have
by,
you.
I always mess with my profession. I'm a coach and consultant with a practice that's based around a DISC assessment, which is a test that helps highlight and identify our strengths, potential challenges in our behavior, and then how to use that to set a specific action plan towards helping us reach our goals, dealing with areas like communication and focus and self-awareness, and trying to help us get to where we're trying to get to and be our best version, but getting able to be there as ourselves.
That's good. That was really good. I like to call Jermaine the self-awareness guru. And I think that what he does is provide tools to help us live differently. And because this idea of being self-aware is something that can take you a long way. It's not about like everything being positive, but being aware of what's not working and what's working. So
Yes.
thank you for being here. And so one of the things that I think that happens in our lives is that we tend to self-sabotage. I think some people actually know that they're doing it. I've had clients say to me that, I know I'm like I'm sabotaging, I'm self sabotaging this, And there's so many different reasons why, but there's so many different ways how we self-sabotage. And so I kind of want to like, let's talk about that. Like, what are some of those ways that we self-sabotage? You are like the guru of self-awareness, and you always have a way of making things very clear and concise for us. So let's start with the first, like, think about the top way people tend to self-sabotage.
Well, first off, thank you. You're always very, very kind. I always appreciate it. And I always say all the time, Celeste, my favorite person in mental health.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And self-sabotaging, usually when we think about it, you think of it's a lot of times we think it's deeper than what it might actually be. Like when we think of self-sabotage, we're thinking like when we're really strategically planning things out to kind of tank a situation or to ruin a relationship, leaving the phone number in your pocket so you know to get found, doing stuff that buying those cupcakes when you know you're on a diet. Like those things were like, okay, those seem like glaring. Yeah, those seem like glaring moments of self-sabotage. But I think the a lot of the simpler stuff that we do that we may not be aware that we're doing it because it becomes masked as something else, like over planning is a level of self-sabotage where we'll put so much stuff on our plate that we can convince ourselves to think that we're just being ambitious, that we're just grinding, we're just getting stuff done, I'm just being productive. But the reality is so much is put on our plate that there's not. And if our time management is not in place and we don't have boundaries for the stuff that we're doing, we'll load all this stuff on and there's no way things get completed, or pertinent things don't get completed for things that may not be as significant.
Yeah, that's good. And also when you think about over planning, or like you said, piling everything up on your plate, I say sometimes people are so used to living in chaos that they actually lean towards that. Even though they might say they're tired, they might say they got too much going on, but when they really stop and pause, they'll be like, "Yo, actually, I said yes to this. Like, I said yes to that. Nobody like forced me to do it." But for some reason, people really feel drawn to have to do it. Like there's this, they say I'm drawn, and I always try to like stop and pause people and say, like that's like just the habit energy from just the environment that you've been used to. You've been used to living in chaos. So chaos is your environment. It's normal for your system to want to like lean in towards that. So that's the over planning is one of those things that you would say like that self sabotage. And I don't think people would ever identify that as a self sabotaging behavior, honestly.
Yeah, if you just like, so some people, some of it is we'll do too much, like we just have too many activities going on. Other times is we'll tell ourselves, I have to make sure it's perfect. So I'll sit there and I have to research more. I have to study more. I have to talk to a few more people. I have to look at a few more sites, and over planning that way to the point to where the deadline gets closer. Now all of a sudden the window is closing, but I just need to talk to one more person. I just need to, because when I do it, it has to be perfect. And then the window either closes or it gets so thin that we're now making erratic decisions, and all that research is kind of irrelevant because we're just now scrambling to get stuff done. And so had we moved with 70% of the information that we had, we'd be fine. But because we waited to get that extra 30%, now we don't have the time to execute. So now we're trying to hurry up and we're trying to and things don't get done right, and we feel pressured and we don't think clearly, and we just kind of mess things up.
One of the commenters is saying Jermaine is on point with that. I'm working with the guy right now that takes on way too much, then drops his workload on me to finish them. What about people who may say that I find myself working better under pressure? Do you think that's a real thing?
So is it a real thing? Yes, but usually not the definition that people think. So what happens is that there's a lot of people that don't have boundaries or have poor time management, but what they do have, I like to refer to, is a Rubicon, like a point of no return. So from that point on is they lock in. So their time is like a big funnel. So like imagine the opening of a funnel, everything gets thrown in there. Well, when they finally hit their Rubicon, that's when it streams down. So that's when they get priorities. That's when they have boundaries. That's when they get clearer focus of action and intention. So until they've reached the point to where I know I can, the absolute longest I can wait is here. Now I can block everything else out and I can focus on this. So that they'll say I'm better under pressure. No, that's when you just actually instituted boundaries. That's when you, that's when you actually got focused, is what you consider pressure. But you had wide open planes for 2 weeks, but you waited till 48 hours to lock into study.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So then they're like, oh no, I can zero in. No, that's just the only time you focus.
So I'm curious about how you. I want to tell you what I kind of how I navigate when I hear this, because
Okay.
I try to get people to, when they're under pressure, the deadline's here, all this anxiety. I have them hone in on what do they feel and does it feel good? Do you like being in that state?
Yeah.
And thinking about what they could have done differently. So more very cognitive. What kind of, because you're very much about like kind of tangible, actionable steps.
Yeah.
What kind of ways would you like guide people? Because this is actually a real thing of people really thinking that they can work under pressure. I mean, not that they can't work under pressure, but it doesn't feel good. You get used to like living your life in that cycle of doing things during the deadline. And then not only do you end up struggling emotionally, but some of your relationships may start to look different because now you're snapping on the kids, you're snapping on your spouse because you're trying to do everything under pressure. How would you navigate that like idea with somebody to help them kind of change that pattern that they've been doing for a long time?
Okay, so when it comes to things like along that nature, the first thing I kind of similar to what you were saying is notice. So what do you notice is happening in this moment? And so I notice my heart rate's increased. I notice I sweat a little bit. I notice my body feels warm. I notice my hands are clammy, whatever. Okay, that's the actual what you notice. Now name it. Oh, it's exciting. I feel pressure. I feel like amped. Okay, that's one way. So that's a certain group of people. But another group, name it. I feel anxious. I'm worried, fearful. Okay, that's another. So based upon who names it means what are we doing? So for the people that this is exciting, the adrenaline rush, the pressure, they actually like that feeling. So they'll delay things and make it fourth and long and make it, the shot clock's running out because they like that rush of having the pressure on. So it's not anxiety to them. They like that. So they're trying to manipulate a situation to create it. For the other ones who have anxiety and who have stress and okay, now we're going to approach this differently. So the first group, let's give you a little more time because you may execute better, but you're not worried about the emotional part. You just may not be as good when you don't give yourself as much time. For the other group who have anxiety and they're fearful and they get panicky, okay, well, this is not a healthy state for you to be in. So regardless if you're successful or not of the outcome, it's the state that's the problem. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I like the way you're breaking it down.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that the second group, the execution is not specifically the issue. It's that state of being in that panicky mode. Okay. So let's address that. How did you get there? Okay. Well, how many things did you say yes to? Because I explained to people that you're the master of what you say no to, but you're a slave to what you say yes to. So if you keep saying yes to everything, then you've now created this space to where you don't have room to move. Like that's the putting too much on your plate. So let's prioritize what your schedule looks like. Let's prioritize the way that you approach things. Let's prioritize your scheduling. You may be like I use rating systems for things. And so you're making things a priority that are not a priority. So let's move those to where they should be. And let's address the things that are important. And it will start to slot down your schedule and you address the things in time. And so it gives people breathing room. So it doesn't necessarily take the things off your plate. It's the order in which you're eating them. That makes it. And so for those people, then it's okay. Now I have more breathing room.
Got it. And I've a lot of the people I deal with are more needing that breathing room and needing to prioritize.
Yeah.
But I guess it sounds like for people that like that adrenaline rush,
Yeah. They
it's
like to
nice to
ride the
be able
lightning.
to, yeah, to notice that that's what's happening, so that if they're working in a team and other people are trying to get, and their work ethic is affecting the team or the household, at least they know that what else can I do to get this feeling that I'm feeling, so that they can replicate it without screwing up some relationships.
Yeah, that's what, with me, it's always important. It's not I always say I'm not a doctor, so I don't diagnose and I don't prescribe. I'm not here to tell you, quote unquote, what's wrong with you. I want you to tell me what this experience means to you.
Yeah.
So if you tell me that I work best under pressure, okay, I'm not going to tell you you have anxiety. I need you to tell me you have anxiety. Like I said, when I tell you, name it, what is this name like? Oh man, it's a rush. Like it's like everybody's counting on me. It's like the basketball game. We down by 2. I'm shooting a 3, and the clock is running out. Like there's people who live for that moment.
I know.
Versus others who like that's no, like no. So let's find out which one you are before I start directing you. Like so, there's some people like, nah, I want that. So when it comes to working with people and communicating with others, if we have that conversation and now you identify, okay, I'm creating this environment because I want to be in a position to make the game winning shot. I know that about me now. That may not be the case for the other people on the team.
Right.
So let me at least say, let me communicate more than maybe I would, or engage more than maybe I would before, but then put myself in a position that maybe I'm the one that presents it. Or maybe let me get that last second shot feeling another way, where I don't bring the whole team on this roller coaster ride with me.
Yes.
And there may be a whole team full of people that this is all panic, anxiety, but that starts if I know me, I know what I'm doing. So then I can effectively work with other people better.
Yes, yes. And I just kind of want to, because we're talking about that part, but there are the frustrated people like Killer Bravo on YouTube. So I just want to read this person's comment. So he said, you're on point, but the person drops the workload on them, right?
Yeah.
And then says the person has a heart failure, gets panicked like already. And I hate working with this panic mindset. It makes me so frustrated. Oh, that's funny. I was going to ask the question and you just wrote it. So how do you deal with the person like that? Is so crazy that we're in alignment, Killer Bravo. I was literally about to ask that question. So because it says it makes me so frustrated, and I'm all about like, I don't want to feel like I got you, Jermaine, making me feel a type of way. Like I want to have more control over my emotions. So how does somebody deal with that person that want to make the game winning shot and then end up dropping the workload on the other person?
Okay, so if you're partnered with the person so the self-awareness of you, if you're like, you know what, I need things to be structured and in order, and we have a protocol and a way to do things. There's 12 steps to this program. There's 20 steps to this program. Let's go A, B, C, D, E. So by the time we get to when it's finish line, it's like dominoes. Everything just lines up. We've eliminated the anxiety. We've eliminated the pressure, eliminated the stress. But now I got a guy over here who doesn't want to follow protocol. Like he's doing things, which is putting us in position to where, hey, no, if you just do this on Monday and make sure you've done this by Wednesday, we're straight by Friday. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday comes like he hasn't even started yet. You're like, look, dude, you messing up. Like we got a flow here. We got a way we do things. So when it comes to dealing with individuals like that, number one is communication. Because the first part is they may not know what they're doing, how it's affecting you. So we can't hold people to standards that we don't tell them that they exist. So, hey, man, the way you're doing this, if that's fine when you're by yourself, but with this group, we need things structured this way, such and such, whatever. So that's the first part. That may resolve it. Because there's a lot of times people have tunnel vision. They don't even know how they're affecting other people. If that's not the case, and he's like, this is just how I work. This is just how I get down. Then are there ways that we can restructure how we do things for this person? Can we take away some of their responsibility? Can we redelegate the assignments within this thing that better suits? Well, let me put this together, and then we're going to plug you in for this, this, and this that suits you better. Like, are there ways that we can work with this? If we have people that we just know are yes folks, the ones that just say yes to everything, or like, dude, why did you say yes? We're already 2 days behind and you just added something else. then once again, first start with the conversation. Second is that those people are, people call them people pleasers. Sometimes they call them, some people are, I want to be everything to everybody. So sometimes reiterating the significance of what you need them for sometimes shifts their priorities. Like they're saying yes to everything because they want everybody to be good. We're like, well, look, we're not going to be good if you keep saying yes to these 10 other things. So if your focus is to make sure that everything is straight, by you doing this is creating a problem. So let's streamline this out. Like I said, rooted in let's communicate what's happening. We can't just yell at them for what they're doing wrong. We want to interject something like what would actually help make this right.
Right. I think Killer Bravo, like you're saying, for a fact that person plans and that he plans in very little time when I leave buffer so that I can chill and finish like a pro in my time. So I think that some people know that they always have that person to give it to as well. And I know, like, I don't know your work situation, but I know every work situation looks differently. Some people where the boss will favor that person's style and not really put their foot down, like it's out of your control. A lot of times it can be out of our control on what ramifications happen due to not completing task. So definitely like pay attention to like what's happening, how effective are you communicating, and if you are communicating effectively, what can my next move be? Because clearly I've done everything that I can to create change in this environment, and it's just not happening, and I'm struggling with that.
Yeah, and on the self-awareness side, so just as much as somebody can be oblivious because they want to take the last second shot, sometimes we're not aware that we want too much security. So sometimes it's not that they're just off the mark, but how far they're off the mark one way plus how far we are off the other way is what creates the huge divide. So if we're the type of person like, no, if this thing is due is Friday, I want my hands done with it by Tuesday. Like they gave me 3 weeks to do this project. I want to be done by Tuesday. I want to have I want this to be done and it can, and it's not due till Friday. They're not wrong taking till Thursday night. Because if you were given 3 weeks to do it, they're fine with working till Thursday night. You're the one that wants to be done by Monday night. Understanding sometimes it's like, okay, my extra need for the buffer, for protection, for consistency, for safety, for peace of mind, I may be a little more off-centered one way. And like I said, they're a little more reckless on the other. So they bug me that much more because the gap is so wide. But we have to understand, we bug them. Like when we're sitting there saying, well, how come you're not done yet? Dude, get off my back. It ain't due for 3 days. Like there's people who, so that's where it becomes a problem. So that's why, like I said, being aware with who we are, where we're at with it. And then, okay, is it because they're a problem? Then you look at the execution, because that's the big thing too. I know with me, always the stories and analogies. Execution is the difference. Ignores Sylvester Stallone around to a job versus if you send in 007, it's not to your.
Wait, hold on, Jermaine. Hold on. You're breaking up a little bit. I can't hear what you're saying. You're about to tell me an analogy and I can't even hear. Hold on. Okay, there you go. All right, I'm listening.
Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. So the difference between if you're like Rambo or like, Chuck Norris with Delta Force movies versus if you're like 007, like a sniper. Your boss wants you to make the hit. That's execution to your boss. You said that it's better to come in and make a clean hit. Just come in, break out the rifle, one little, pull the rifle back up, go home, clean, neat, done. They come in, take out 72 people, but
oh no, you're breaking
and then leave. To your boss. Yeah, can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, sorry. Hold on. Let me wait till it catches up. Okay. So start over again. Sorry.
No problem. So the importance of it, looking at it through the lens of execution. So the analogy I was using was the difference between if you send in like the Marines you know, the Rambo type versus if you send in like the 007 type with the sniper. If your boss, if your manager, if the person above you is like, I just need to make sure that this hit is done, so-and-so does not leave the function, and you send in the sniper, who's the one who's very detail orientated, very focused, plans in advance. He walks in, climbs up to the tower, breaks out the rifle, scopes, you know, one shot, breaks the rifle apart, walks away, and it's clean. Versus if you send the person in who seems erratic, they come in with the AKs and just shoot the whole room up. They hit their target, which is all the person up top wanted. Did you get it done? Yes. To the person who's got the mentality of the sniper, that's very excess, it's very erratic, it's very chaotic, it's very unnecessary. But to the person who did it, is like, I got the job done though, right? So sometimes it's a perspective thing. And so if we don't value their thought process, we see it as a waste of time. Whereas the person who came with the AK is like, yeah, you planned on this for 6 months and got it done. I planned on this for 6 hours and we both got the same result. Yeah. So I don't respect your process. You don't respect mine. So to your boss, they may just be like, did he get a job done or not? Yes. Okay, then it's fine for them. So sometimes we have to check that maybe it's not done the way we want it to, but is it still successful in the end?
That's good. And I think that's where the DISC assessment kind of comes into play for people. What he kind of talked about at the beginning of the podcast. There's actually a whole podcast on the DISC assessment. But I think that when we can understand what works for us and what doesn't work for us, because we won't always have the ideal environment. Everybody can't just work for themselves, right? It's important to understand like what kind of motivates us. What do we struggle with? So we're not consistently getting beat up at the job, not physically, but, you know, feeling like drained and down. And sometimes we're in environments that may not be the best, but I think if we can identify it and work around it or figure out how we can get ourselves fed, not literally, but like our, you know, what we like fed, I think that we can start to operate and look at things. When you said that it's about perspective, it kind of made me think about like the DISC assessment and like what it allows people to learn about themselves.
Yeah. The assessment really breaks down how we see the world. And so it really specifically, analogies like if you ever had to take an eye exam and they sit you in the chair and they put the thing in front of you and they keep flipping the lens. Okay, does it look like this or like this? Is it better like this or like that? All the way till it gets your prescription for what's the best way that you can see it. That's the DISC assessment shows what that process is for us. So we're all looking at the same, but we're looking differently. And so there's a different prescription for how we see the world. Yeah. And so when the assessment shows what our individual prescription is. Yeah. How we deal with communication, how we interact with people, how we make decisions, how we if we like structure or not, how cautious we are about approaching things. All that stuff is our individual prescription. And when we know that, then we can better maneuver because we know how we see things.
I'm sorry, Killer Bravo. You should take the DISC assessment and help you. I can tell you're struggling.
He is not playing prepper practice. I'm shaking my head over here thinking about this guy right now. With him or her, Killer Bravo, the question would be is, do they execute? So in the end, like those people who we all went to school with somebody who never studied, but they figured out a way to pass the class.
I know.
That
I hate it.
Even if I hear all the time, D- is passing, C- you don't have to take the class over. And so if their mind is, did I pass? You can tell me whatever you want about my process, but you got an A and studied every night. I got a C and studied every night. We're both moving on to the next class. And in 5 years, no one's going to care who studied more. So the reality of it is that like right now, wherever you are in life, nobody cares that you got a B in second period French sophomore year in high school. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's somebody, our diplomas don't come with the grade point average attached to them. So there's some people, they'll look at you, did I get it done or not? So that's the thing when they become irritating with their process, do they at least execute?
Yep. So we're talking about self-sabotaging behaviors. We talked about over planning. We talked about, this idea, like I got to get it perfect. And then, we identified that when that happens, really paying attention to like your body's response, like what does that look like? How does it make you feel? So you can really start to identify it, become self-aware. What are some other self-sabotaging behaviors? Because like you said, like eating a cookie or doing something very like clear, like leaving a number in your pocket, like that's clearly self-sabotaging. What are the ones that people miss?
Not asking for help. Like there'll be people who think that they'll have a certain attachment to what asking for help means to them. Like means people think I'm incompetent, or maybe I think it's a sign of weakness, or maybe I don't want to bother anybody and impede upon their time. I should know this. I should figure it out. But not asking for help is a form of self-sabotage, because if the goal is to get things done and execute, staying in a space of not knowing, or staying in a space of being overwhelmed, or with a lack of resources or time, knowing you don't have it and choosing to not do anything about it is a form of self-sabotage.
That's so true. That's
like,
so true.
We'll call it something else, but in reality, that's what it is. You're slowly failing this class, but instead of telling somebody you need help, you're trying to figure it out on your own and you're not getting it. So you just silently get this F. Instead of asking, hey, can you show this to me? Can you explain that again? Can you work with me on this? Can you come by? Like, not asking for help is a form of self-sabotage.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think the voices in our head around, like what you said, like, I should have known this, I think we are our biggest like enemies against pushing forward in life, and paying attention to that voice, and reminding yourself what's the goal, and what is it that I need, and kind of push past that feeling, so that you're not allowing that feeling of I'm too incompetent or whatever is going through your head to lead the show. Remembering kind of like what your goal is. Like, I need to get this done. This is the plan. So that's a really good one that I would have not like framed as self-sabotaging behavior.
Yeah. Like I said, a lot of the things we do get masked by something else. And like for that, I always recommend just the reverse engineering approach. Because when you reverse engineer, where you start with the finish in mind and work your way backwards, it eliminates the fear and apprehension and doubt is when we're trying to start. But if we're starting with the finish, we're already in motion when we cross the bridge of the doubt, insecurity, and question. I don't know if that makes sense. So if you're saying my goal is to pass this class regardless, I need a B or better. What's everything I need to do to get a B? And start working your way back. I have to have so many averages on this test. I need to have so many homework stuff done. So I'm going to start doing things based upon the finish. Okay, well, I got a C on the last one. I need to get an A on the next one. How do I do that? So-and-so got an A. Let me talk to you. And just keep the end result in mind, because it's easy to get lost and to lose ambition and focus when we focus on this. For some people's wiring, when you focus on the start to the finish, there's a lot of intangibles and questions and forks in the road before you reach the final destination. But when you start at the finish, there's only one starting point. So moving forward, if you're trying to get from Boston to New York, there's a bunch of freeways, bunch of expressways, all that, if New York is your destination. But if you start at New York to where you are in Boston, there's only one destination. So for some people, the reverse engineering helps counteract some of those things.
I see you, Killer Bravo.
Shout out to Killer Bravo.
I was gonna say, you know how you said we got to start with the end in mind, or thinking about what's our goal. It's interesting because we start with this goal, and at some point we lose focus, or I think we tend to forget what that plan is. So for instance, let's stick with the grade thing that you just said.
Okay.
If I'm trying to if I want to get an A, but then things happen, or my fear gets in the way, I forget that I want to get an A.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll settle, I'm just using this as an example, but we'll have a goal, but then we'll settle because we're doing these self-sabotaging behaviors, instead of thinking like, who can I ask for help? Be like, you know what? Let me just hop on this C real quick, even though I really wanted an A. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the difference would be is if you drove. That's everybody ever take a road trip or something. We always say it always feels like coming home is faster than getting there. You know, it felt like it took forever to get there, but you seem to get home, it feels like half the time.
Yeah.
So when we have a goal, if we're focused on getting there, there's a lot of distractions. You're stopping off for stuff. Let's go to the gas station. Let's get something to eat. Let's go sightseeing. Let's do all these things that can take away from your time, your focus, and your drive. But when you're coming home, you're just trying to come home. So that's it. So sometimes flipping it the other way to you're like, all right, I'm already out here on a ledge with everything I did for this grade. Now I need to make sure that I make this count. So so I can streamline it back.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes I say working backwards. It's all a perspective thing, but for some people, looking at it differently, turning it and seeing it differently is what helps. You know, like putting together a puzzle. If you just keep staring at it the same way, you just don't see things anymore. But if you get up and go to the other side of the table and then look at it down, now all of a sudden you start seeing pieces. You know, sometimes we just need to look at things differently.
And that's why we have you here to help us look at things differently. You got us breaking down self-sabotaging behaviors, like, you know, in a different way that I never really thought about. So what would you say another self-sabotaging behavior would look like? Yes, failing is a learning experience.
Yes. Isolating yourself when you're hurt. So when we're trying to do things, if we take one on the chin, if we take a loss, if we're dealing with some stuff and that default to want to isolate, I just need to be by myself. I just want to be alone. There's a value in that to a degree, but one of the stages why that can become self-sabotaging is that because we're only regurgitating and reshifting information we already have. So sometimes if it's something that requires help, we need to go outside of ourselves to get new information or to get new perspective. So sometimes when we're just like, I just want to be alone. I don't want to talk. I don't feel like talking because in talking, I'm reactivating some of these emotions that I'm really not trying to deal with right now. But in that uncomfortable space and in that feeling, that's actually where the answers are. So when we stay by ourselves and just kind of cocoon ourselves in a safe space that does not have to deal with those things, that can prolong the process of healing, of moving forward, of change, of being better in that particular environment or situation.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you know, just from a psychological standpoint, I think that when I tell people, you know, when you're struggling, like you said, isolating self when hurt, when you're struggling and you stay isolated, all those faulty thoughts, you need some interruption happening because all you're doing is circling around, like you said, the information you already know. And I think that when you begin to step outside of yourself, whether it's like starting to write it out, you know, like getting that stuff out, it's hard to see. I say sometimes it feels like a grieving process, like, wow, I really feel this way, or this is really happening. But you'll never get to a place of healing if you don't stop and pay attention to what's happening. I tell people it's going to happen with or without you being a part of the process or not. So why not be a part of the process? And I think like that's a really good point. It's like you're basically, it's a good way to help people. Like, you know, when I talk about it now, to say like you're just kind of recycling what you already know, and right now what you know is pain.
Yeah. And I think something that's important too, a couple things. So one, there's a difference between disrupting a negative thought pattern and then as opposed to trying to disassociate or not connect with what's happening. So sometimes we'll say, okay, well, talking to people will disrupt the things that, okay, so I know we're talking. So very little of what we think of in a day-to-day basis is new information. So the bulk of what we think is like, we don't tell our body to breathe. We don't tell our heart to beat. Like it's autopilot is a good portion. And then like 95% some out of what we do in a day-to-day basis is just information on replay. There's a narrative in our brain that just constantly keeps looping with information and thought patterns that we already have with biological responses that we don't actually think about doing. So very little of what you do on a day-to-day basis is actually a conscious decision to do something different.
True.
So when we get into these rabbit holes of being in pain or being in a space, that negative tape can be on replay of negative. See, you're stupid. This is why this happened. See, bad things, you're bad luck. You can't make good decisions. You can't, and you just start looping that over and over again. There's a need to disrupt that negative thought pattern. So that's one thing, but that's different than trying to distract by instead of feeling and going through the process of expressing and explaining and dealing with what we're going through, of trying to just coping mechanisms to distract us from the situation that we're in. Those are different.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not talking to other people necessarily to distract you from the situation you're in. You may be talking to other people to disrupt the negative thought pattern and interject more positive, affirming information and more tools and tactics and techniques to help better the situation. So they're not just to distract you from your pain, but they're to help you. There's a difference in the two.
Yeah, a huge difference. And
yeah, but some people are like, I just want to be distracted. Yeah, that's not this. It's not just about distraction.
But you can't, and you can't never run away from your mind. Like when people say that, I try to say, like, how could you run away from something that's a part of you? Those thoughts are there, whether you acknowledge them or not, and they end up showing up in different ways. Maybe by the way you decide to live out your purpose, or like your goals, right? Like they're gonna show up, and until you start to make that connection, you're gonna continue to find yourself in this constant state. Like some people say, it's like feel like I'm on a roller coaster ride, or I'm just doing the same thing and nothing's changing.
Yeah.
It starts up here, honestly, and that's why like the self-awareness piece is a powerful thing. It can feel painful, right? Like when
Yeah.
you have to acknowledge what is, but there's so much power that happens by not feeling as if the world is against you, or everything's happening to you, or I don't have any control. And I think more people, unfortunately than not, are in that predicament of feeling as if they don't have any control, not recognizing that there's things that they can do that are very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, after that discomfort is uh, a lot of, I don't want to say joy, but just a lot of power.
Yeah, and when it comes to those negative thought patterns and that those voices that stay on repeat, I also am a firm believer in naming those as well,
Yes.
because one of the worst things we want to have is a voice on repeat of a narrative. It's not our voice, and we didn't write the script. So what we keep hearing about ourselves, like I'll ask people when you hear these things telling you these negative things about yourself, what is it? If you were to give it a name, what would you name it? And sometimes I'm interested to see what gender is it? Like if it's a woman and she gives it sounds like, Michael. Okay, so it's a man's voice you're hearing telling you these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, then sometimes that's, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't me if the
Mm-hmm.
voice I hear, or if it's a man and he tells me a woman's name, he's hearing repeatedly telling him what he is or isn't. Okay, so number one, this isn't me. And if it's the same gender, does this sound like you, or does this sound like someone you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll start finding people, a lot of the negative loops that's playing, you have to come to that come to Jesus moment to realize that the people you love are the ones who are, their words are the ones that are cycling and continuously hurting you.
Yeah.
When you have to have that, you're like, man, I love my dad. My dad's great. But this bearing voice that keeps telling me I ain't nothing is him.
Mm-hmm.
I love my mom, love her to death, but this thing, that's constant critique and criticism that's chipping away at my self-esteem every day, it's hers.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the self-awareness part is like, okay, all these narratives aren't even mine.
Right.
Like I didn't write these. I don't believe them. So we got to start, all y'all is fired. Like we need to start going through cleaning house. And when you can, and that happens in those spaces where sometimes talking to another person, not just being isolated, not letting those voices bombard us, because when we get hurt and get in these spaces, a lot of us get small and we get quiet and we huddle in, and these voices get louder. And then they start teaming up. They tagging each other in. You're hearing your mom's voice and your dad's voice, your first boyfriend and your ex-wife. You're hearing your boss and your third grade teacher and everybody who told you something bad about yourself. They just tagging each other in and dropping elbows on you into submission. So talking to other people and breaking those negative thought cycles and patterns is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be going on these little runs,
No, I like that. And the reason why that happens, where you have all of these different voices, is because most of us, especially in America, we don't learn how to take time and process, right? We have to just keep going. We're always in survival mode. And so if you're in survival mode, you don't know what's hurting you. You don't pay attention to it, but your body remembers. Your body's holding on to it. Your mind is holding on to it. It doesn't forget, which is why, like, if you choose to work on being more self-aware, then you can start to pay attention to those voices. And like Jermaine said, like giving it a name is actually very powerful. so that you can try to like separate yourself from it and say like, oh,
Yes.
this is not me, right? And I think more people struggle with that than not. Like they struggle with all of these voices and all of these things, and it hinders them from living out their purpose, you know. And I think that our mind and body knows our potential and knows our capability, and so many people are uncomfortable in life right now because um, they're not moving accordingly to, you know, the things that they want to do or their capabilities. Like they're living below their means.
Yeah.
Whether or not they want to say that consciously, I think their system knows it.
Yeah, you may not know what you want to do by way of profession, or you may not know how many dollars a year you want to make, but you know if your life does not look like you want it to look like. You know if your goals, some, like you kind of referring to the programs, we work through what do you want? Well, I want a house that's comfortable. I want family around me. I want just the basics. I want family. I want kids. I want a nice neighborhood where the kids can go outside. It's okay, and maybe some friends to do some stuff with. Okay, and the more they talk, okay, well, how close or far is that from the life you live? Some of them light years. It's like, nah, I live in an apartment that I can't stand. I got neighbors. I hate my job. Like I'm single. I'm divorced. My kids, we don't talk, or I never had them, or they're not the ones I wanted. All these different things. And they're just like, their life does not, they know this is not what I want for my life. And like I said, your body, all the anxiety, the clenching your teeth while you sleep, the stomach problems, the migraines, the muscle aches, the sleep issues, the appetite problems, all those things are directly correlated to all these scorecards during the course of the day, all these L's we took in life that we're just trying to justify, rationalize, or slowly take on the chin. It does stay in the body. That's why they say stress is the number one cause
Oh,
killer
absolutely.
in this country.
Before COVID, yeah, like
Yeah.
that was it. And there wasn't even a stat that said Monday mornings where people had the most heart attacks because from just the angst of having to go into a job that they hated on Monday morning, right? Like
It's real. I worked with somebody and we talked about changing culture because in his job, Monday was the worst day. Everybody had attitude, regardless of their weekend. Everybody was in a bad mood, regardless of they could have the best weekend ever. But the fact they had to go to work on Monday, they were miserable. So we were talking about changing culture. And then we were talking, and what he decided was like every Monday on his way to work, he'd buy like 3-4 dozen donuts from like this bakery near where they worked. So then every time somebody would come in that first week, they were like, oh, cool. Who got donuts? Johnson got donuts. Hey, thanks, Johnson. Second week. Oh, you got donuts again? Oh, okay. Donut Mondays. So then people started coming to work earlier on Monday. People started becoming excited to work on Monday because the good donuts was there Monday morning. There was a complete culture shift. More people started getting excited about showing up Monday than they were about trying to leave early on Friday.
wow.
Complete culture shift. Same
And
days of the week, same workload, but change of perspective.
I was gonna say it's a perspective shift because some people could have afforded a donut, but it's
It
just
wasn't even,
it's the little things,
it
that
wasn't
mindset.
just he got the good apple fritters. Like
Yep.
just the, not the cheap little boys, but he got the good, like the cronuts and the,
Right.
like just
Right.
something as simple as a few dozen donuts completely changed culture of his office.
Yep.
So sometimes we may not be in a position where we can change our job, or we can't change in our kids for a better version in our mind. They don't come with a receipt. And so sometimes we have to implement cultural changes, structure things around folks to kind of make it what we want it to be.
Yeah, and even with ourselves, like the scenario, I'm in this apartment, I don't like it. Like, becoming self-aware, obviously we can't snap our fingers and then
Yeah.
get to where like we want to go, but we'll never get there if we don't even start. And I
Yeah.
think most people just stay stuck, and not even like create a plan, or they create a plan and something happens, and so they abandon it, right? So I just think that it's really important, to pay attention. Like you made such a great point around the different ways that our body, the clenching of the teeth, the biting of the people, like bite their talk about biting their tongues and stuff in the middle of their
Yeah.
sleep, or their gums, and or their chest, like, and you're going to the doctor, they're doing these tests, nothing's happening, they're
Right.
giving you these meds just to like calm you
Sedate
down
you.
so you can feel like where we're here, we're doing something, when a lot of it really has to do with, what, let me stop, because our bodies gives us signs and tries to tell us things. When I'm overwhelmed, my back starts hurting.
Yeah.
And my back would hurt as a child. Not I never recognized that, like, our body can show up when our mental health is off. And so if you really start to like look at what's happening and become self-aware, you can really begin to have a lot more power in your life. It doesn't change your circumstances right away, but you're starting somewhere, and that's huge, I think.
Yeah. And it changes the belief of it can be different.
Yes.
Like when we just keep staring at something the same way, it's real easy to get that narrative of this is how it's always going to be.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, I'm powerless in this department of what I want to do. Like I'm in this apartment and it sucks. What do you want? I want a house. Okay, well, how much does a house cost? How much do you need down to make a house? I need X amount of dollars. Okay, what is that over? How long can you live here, man? I can do 2 more years, and before I'm gonna go crazy. Okay, so you need to make X amount of dollars over 2 years. What is that you need to make a year to have saved per year, per 6 months, per 3 months, per month? So if you put X amount of dollars away per month or X amount of dollars a pay, like make it as small as possible. And it's not huge numbers. So if you're talking about, I need to come up with 10 grand, 15 grand over 2 years, you're not talking about huge money. It just means you're not buying donuts on Mondays anymore.
Right.
It just means that, okay, if I can shave down from 4 coffees a week to 2 or to 1 or whatever, okay, then you'll start seeing tangible growth, 1% growth. And you start to see, oh, the needle did move.
Yeah. We got to
Like
celebrate those moments.
Yeah, like something did. Okay, wait a minute. All right. Because then think about saving money, like just using money. It's hard to save money when you don't have any, but it's hard to spend it after you've saved it. Like when you've been broke for a long time and the money just burned a hole in your pocket and you figured out a way to get up to 5 grand. Oh, you ain't buying nothing no more.
No.
Like if I spend a penny, I'm down back into the 4s.
Yep.
Like just you coming out with us if you buying, like then saving becomes like an obsession, and then all of a sudden but that's a whole perspective shift.
Yeah.
So for these things that become self-sabotaging, the things that we do that poke holes in our own boat, it's being mindful of, I always look for the next, when we're doing something, what's the next, or what's the complaint? Okay, well, what's the next layer beneath that? And just being mindful of a lot of the things that we tell ourselves about, I'm strong, I'm independent, I grind, I hustle, I no sleep. No, okay. That's half of the sentence of what's drilling holes in your boat. I'm independent, so I don't ask for help. I can take on the world, so I overplan and say yes to too many things. I can handle anything that comes at me, so I can, I work under pressure. Like all those things that we tell ourselves, that we hoist ourselves up, usually that's just the first half of the sentence of the self-sabotaging behavior.
Bam, drops mic. That's it. No, that's good. I love it. I know that people listening to this, so much of what, so we both work with people, and so much of what you said, just, I know it's a common theme in people's lives. So I know that so many people are going to like have some kind of ways that they can start working through this stuff, because it's not easy when you're dealing with something you can't literally see. Like, it's not like, oh, my pencil's broken, let me put some tape on it.
Yeah.
We're talking about things where you really have to like pause and get uncomfortable, and that's nothing's easy about that. And as like whoever I have on, and definitely Jermaine, we never try to sell this idea that just do this and do that and things are going to be fine. It's a lot of work.
It's that mental, before that mental and emotional shift, that Grand Canyon jumping.
Yeah.
It's that the actual process is stepping over a puddle, but the actual making that internal shift to believe we can do it is jumping the Grand Canyon. It's going to scare you, stress you, get panicky, all that. But once you fully accept this is a leap I can make.
Yeah.
Once you take off, realistically, then can't nobody tell you nothing. When you're clearing it and you realize that you clearing it, but still elevating, like you just, it is a complete perspective shift on how we see ourselves.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm definitely there where um I can really like keep going, but I had to do so much work to get there. And that's, I think that's why I'm able to deliver the message the way I do, because I've listened to those people where I'm like, why can't I just get it done?
Yeah.
But they left out the part that it's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
so
It's, I mean, even just personally, when I realized that I was my problem, and though I had help getting there, it was ultimate. Like, you're the one driving the car, and then you got everybody in the back seat, passenger seat, giving you wrong directions and telling you a bunch of craziness. But ultimately, you're the one that's driving the car. Once I realized that I was in a bad space, though I had help to get there, I was responsible for why I was there. And though I can acknowledge that I had help, when the awareness came, when I realized I was behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And so even though those people in the car who were telling me craziness, they're still in the car. Like, some of those voices, some of those narratives, they're still talking. I don't hear them anymore. And so, or I can tell them to shut up and turn the radio, block them out, whatever. But I realize that I'm in the driver's seat. And that's a very empowering feeling, to know that whatever I am or are not, what I do or do not do in this lifetime, at least I'm the one driving there. And when you accept that who you are and what you can do, that's when you get that Bruce Leroy glow. That's when you just feel like, whatever. We driving to New York. All right. We driving to Arizona. No problem. I know I can get there because I'm the one that's behind the wheel.
Yes, that's good. That's dope. Thank you for sharing that. For people listening, I really hope that uh, this is not a feel good podcast where, it's, oh, that sounds good. That was a good message, especially if you're finding it speaking to you. Like, I would really challenge you to do something small and make those changes. The house example you talked about. People think like $5 or $10 a week is nothing, but it's more than $0. Like, it's more
Yeah.
than what you've done. And I think because we can't do whether we're talking about money or anything else, because we can't do it like big, we don't do anything, but we got to do something, and those small things get big. So really start to like work on your perspective about the changes that you're trying to create. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So tell people how they can reach you.
Um, for the program, to learn about the DISC assessment, to take it, to coaching, just if you're just like, I just want to get more information, just kind of see what it's about, you can email me at Teameffortprogram, Teameffortprogram, Teameffortprogram at gmail.com. We just give you the information. Or if you're trying, or every social media platform is the same. It's all at J Morris CEO. So JMORRIS CEO.
And literally, like, kind of like what he did today around paying, perspective shifting and all that stuff. It's like when people work with him, they get that individualized plan to help them kind of see things in a certain way. And it's a powerful thing when you realize that it's powerful when you start to have words and you feel seen. When you didn't have words to understand like how you are, like, or what you've been doing, and you've been doing it a certain way, or been feeling a certain way, and oh, okay, because I see it this way. That's the way. I have an autistic son, and like, he will see a door. I open and close the door, and I remember when he started like looking at the door and looking at the way it was made, and I don't that doesn't I don't care about the way the door was made, but
Yeah.
he's trying to figure it out. But the way he sees the world looks different than the way I see the world. And I think, that's a more drastic thing when you think about like autism. But when you think about just individuals and our different personalities, like, we all see things differently. The same thing could be in front of us, but we're going to look at it differently. And until you understand your personality and like what works for you and what doesn't work for you, you may always find yourself in a state of suffering. So that's why I think, like, with the DISC and your coaching, it really helps people a lot.
Yeah. And the big thing is with me, I always say, is that this is number one, it's self-awareness without judgment.
Yep.
So it's not under the premise of what's wrong with an individual. We're just looking at what is.
Yep.
And then it's how can we get what we want, where we want to be, and still be us. It's not about changing all the things about us. It's identifying what are our strengths, what are our challenges, what are the blind spots in our behavior, so we can optimize what we are.
Yeah.
You know, and so everything's not a fight against the grain. If communication is your strength, we'll figure out how to get there through communication.
Yes.
If setting schedules and structures your thing, let's figure out how we can get there through structure. If you're the loose cannon, the Rambo, okay, then let's get you all the guns you need to kick in the door. If you're the sniper, let's get you the best vantage point for your one shot. Like, let's figure out how to get you there as you.
Yes. I love that no judgment thing, because we're all different. I just wish more of us embraced our differences, and not try to be aligned with society.
In a world that tells you to be yourself, but then chastises you for doing so, it can be very, very conflicting and very difficult.
Exactly. Thank you, Jermaine. This was awesome as usual. I
always my favorite person, mental health. Oh, before we go specifically, I very much appreciate what you do. I've had a chance to listen to some of a lot of the episodes late, not even just lately, but in general. And what you do is great. Like the people that you have on, the different perspectives, if they're in holistic base, if they're therapists, if they're whatever, like just all the different things that people do, to be a platform that hosts all these different types of people who all have similar goals, but we may never ever see each other in life. But to have them all in one place on your podcast is amazing. And so I appreciate what you do. And I thank you for allowing me to do this with you.
Thank you, Jermaine. You could have told me that backstage. I'm just kidding. No, thank you. You know how I am. I forgot I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. So for people listening to this, if you like our conversation, if you go to celestetherapist.com/podcast, there is a link where you can click on it and just all of our podcasts will come up. We pretty much flow like this. We connect 5 minutes before the show and think about what we're going to talk about, and then we just kind of talk about it. But because we're so in line in the way that we operate is the reason why it kind of comes out as if we've been working together for years, but we just have the same kind of mindset. So yeah, thank you, Jermaine.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening and rocking out with me. We'll be back Monday talking to somebody else that's doing something to empower the lives of others. This is episode 299. So if you're finding yourself stuck, guess what? There's 289 other episodes that you can listen to, and it's streaming literally on all podcasting platforms. Until next time, I will talk to you all.
165 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the Therapist.